Welcome to the JWA webinar series, Leading Through Change and Uncertainty, brought to you by Fu Yuan Jewellery Joint Stock Company, PNJ for short, the leading jewelry company in Asia. My name is Edna Wong, and I will be the host and moderator for the event. This is the third of the JWA webinar series, and the topic today is on the key in building a successful branding and marketing campaign. These webinars are designed to be thought-provoking, serve as a channel to explore new ideas, and a means to discover different ways of doing things. It is intended to be interactive and engaging. This is a recorded session, which will be available on the JWA website and social media platforms after the event. In addition, there is live streaming taking place on Facebook. So for those who have not registered and would like to join, you can join us now on Facebook. Today, we are honored to have Mr. Richard Tunbridge, Executive Creative Director at O Group, as our keynote speaker. Richard will be sharing his wealth of experience in the advertising and creative field on what he believes are the keys in making successful and effective branding and marketing campaigns. The discussion will be shared by three other panelists who are movers and shakers from the jewelry industry. Mr. Amit Dhamani, Managing Director at Dhamani Jewels, Ms. Angelina Lau, General Manager at SK Jewellery Group, and Tanya Alissia, Group Creative Director at PT Central Mega Kencana. All three speakers are no stranger to the Jewellery World Awards. They are all past honorees and recipients. Before we start, let's watch a video from PNJ, our webinar sponsor. Now, let me pass the microphone to Richard. Richard, please. Richard, you have to unmute.
Thanks, Edna, and thank you all for inviting us here into the metaverse. I do feel very privileged to be here. I will try my best to keep it moving. Think of it not so much as a lecture, but a starting point for discussion. I know it's very early morning for some and past your bedtime for others. So with that in mind, perhaps I can start with a story. And through the magic of the internet, don't worry, I am not really in the back of a fighter jet. It's just a special effect. But I did want to tell a story that relates to fighter planes and bombers and how during the war, they would all head off to battle and return riddled with bullet holes. And after a while, once they had a statistically relevant data sample, they thought they had to better prepare and protect them for campaigns so they could make some structural changes. So they looked at the planes that came back, they looked at where the bullet holes were, and they made those parts of the plane stronger to better prepare them and protect them and strengthen those parts of the planes, the most attacked parts of the planes. They figured it would reduce the number of planes shot down, which all makes sense. Until someone else looked at the data and said, well, hang on a minute, look at those undamaged places. Maybe the reason those parts of the planes are not covered in holes is that the planes that were hit in those areas didn't come back. So maybe if you got shot there, you didn't come back. So the thinking changed, and what they needed was more armor in the parts of the plane where there were no holes. And this turned out to be true. More campaigns were successfully mounted, more planes and lives were saved. So the point is, sometimes what we don't have can be more revealing than what we do have. And if I put that another way, what something means can be more important than what something is. And that is just as important in advertising and marketing. What something means can be more important than what something is. To look at that in a context that perhaps is a little more closer to home, diamonds. So what is a diamond? Maybe you can think about your answer to that. What is a diamond? Maybe you think something like a diamond is a solid form of carbon. Atoms arranged in a crystal structure created under extreme pressure over time, or a diamond is the hardest naturally occurring substance, or a diamond is the most precious of gems, or something like that, whatever. Maybe you think a diamond is a symbol of something, and that would probably be getting us a little closer to the sorts of things that I'm talking about. And the other way of looking at what a diamond is, not what it is, but what it means. And so in that context, I could ask again, what is a diamond? Yes, that old chestnut. A diamond is forever. That old chestnut, however, it did become part of the cultural landscape in 1947. It's a long time ago, just after the war. It changed the category, it changed the industry, it changed the company, and it changed the market, dare I say it, no pun intended, forever. By 1979, thanks to that campaign and associated factors, market situations, De Beers increased their sales from about 23 million to 2.1 billion. Forever even went on to become a noun. So you know when you're being effective, when you become a noun, creating the forever mark, and revenue for De Beers peaked at about 7 billion in 2014. It's been in decline since, but haven't we all? And maybe it's worth only 3 billion today. And why might that be? Well, nothing lasts forever, but amongst other things, the market changed, competition increased, and not just direct competition, high-end fashion, electronics, travel, automotive and beauty products all became direct rivals in a way to diamond jewelry. Still, as an example, is a very effective brand building campaign. And it's been running still to this day. There's a tram there in Hong Kong running down the street the other day. Instagram stories, to borrow from the plane analogy, I guess we can say that the De Beers campaign has flown and flown for miles, returning to the market time and time again with one simple promise. And why? I'd suggest that the reason why is because it connects in some way. But then I guess the next question is, well, what does it connect and how? And perhaps there is that connection with consumers because it also connects a product truth with a relevant and relatable insight and a desirable benefit. And that basically is the blueprint for a unique, relevant, and desirable brand positioning. Reflecting upon what we're talking about, it just doesn't tell you what it is, it tells you what it means. Doesn't tell us what the company is or does, doesn't even tell us what a diamond really is. It tells us what a diamond means, and it tells us what the brand means. And what that brand means and how much it means determines what most people would call brand value to the market and to consumers, which I guess leads us to the next question, which is, what is a brand? So this is the boring academic part, but brands are more than products and names. They're a collection of rational, practical, and emotional assets that mean and promise something to people. And in competitive industries with similar products, these are how we identify and differentiate one brand from another. It starts with where and how we are positioned in the minds of consumers. And that's why we're going to have a little look in discussion about positioning, because positioning really, if you think about it that way, it is the key to building a successful campaign. It is at the heart of every great campaign. I'm talking about marketing, obviously. Here there is, geographical positioning and competitive positioning and those sorts of things. But for today, we're looking at sort of positioning in terms of marketing, because the positioning really does determine the idea. If you think of a great positioning, we've just seen one for De Beers. Maybe I'll show you another one. I won't even have to tell you the brand. I'll just tell you the positioning and you'll know exactly what it is. And you'll know that that doesn't tell you what the company is. It doesn't tell you what Nike, it tells you what Nike means. It expresses the value and the values of the brand. It probably means as much inside the brand as it does to the market. With consumers, it's attitudinal. And the product is an expression of that. Every campaign should embody and reflect that positioning in some way. The positioning is bigger than the product because it has to be true for every product and reflected in every campaign. And you can see how that brand does it. You don't even have to say it literally every time. You just have to communicate it and express it. Once you've established it, you just have to embody and express it in some way every time you go to market. It doesn't matter whether that's a brand campaign, a seasonal campaign, a product campaign, a promotional campaign. It all needs to reflect that positioning. Because if you think about it, every piece of communication and every campaign is a brand campaign. Promotions, seasonal, product, every ad, every post, every message says something to consumers about the brand, whether you intend it to or not. Particularly in the ages of social media. So whether we call it a tactical or a strategic campaign or a promotion, product ad, they all say something about the brand. So the brand and its values need to be in there in some capacity, literally or laterally, implicitly or explicitly. The product will tell you what it is, but to be effective, working hard, connecting deeper, it needs to communicate or add to what the brand means. There's another brand. What do we think that brand means? Well, it says as much about the company again as it does about the product. Think different. That's a positioning. Ask most people though, how many brand campaigns Apple has done, and they'll tell you lots. I don't know how many you think it is, but I can tell you the answer is 2. So not what the brand is, but what the brand means is very interesting because they've only done 2 brand campaigns, one in 1984 and this one in 1997. Everything else they've done since then has been product advertising. In Apple's case, and these days more often than not, a lot of the times now, product is brand. Brand is product. It affirms, reflects, and refreshes and renews the positioning every time it goes. You can see a little bit of think different in everything they do there. They deliver it through product and they deliver it through action at every opportunity until it sort of becomes ubiquitous. So people come to associate and attribute that meaning to the brand. And that consistency of message and tone is actually really important across all communications. Repetition, reinforcement is as important as reinvention because something repeated often enough becomes the truth. When the truth is indistinguishable from legend, print the legend, because that becomes the truth. Reinforcing positioning through brand and product at each touch point and every encounter with consumers is really important. You stick at it, it connects. Consumers respond. Familiarity breeds contempt. might happen in the workplace and in the family, but it's not really an adage born of advertising, marketing, and promotion. Familiarity leads to understanding and meeting. So you think about this next time you see an ad, maybe, or as they used to be known, a public notice. You know, is it telling you what something is, or is it telling you what something means? 85% of campaigns will probably tell you the former. It's a phone, it's a car, it's a cheap phone, it's clothes, it's a bank, it's a shoe, it's a seasonal promotion. It's, as Homer Simpson would say, dope. They're just telling you what things is, not telling you what they mean. And with that, maybe I'll take a little break and reposition myself and see what our esteemed panelists might like to weigh in on.
Thank you, Richard. So let's turn over to the panelists. I would like to first invite Mr. Amit Dhamani to speak about his brands.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. And Richard, thanks for interesting insight on the world of the brands. And coming from a traditional background and trying to see how we position our jewelry business and brand to outside world, I want to take our attendees to a presentation of the Dhamani Group. We have various brands. One is in ultra luxury, one is in affordable luxury, and how we positioned our brand and how we are positioning on a day-to-day basis, not only externally, but also internally. So I'm sure a short 3-4 slides can give a good understanding for attendees. So if you can go to the next slide, please. Yeah, so this is our ultra luxury brand, which we have distinctively defined differently, which is called Dhamani 1969, gives the year of heritage when the brand was born. And that's a logo which is like an infinity logo, but it's 4 Ds. It's father and 3 brothers. We have 4 who are in a joint family business. The logo interprets 4 Ds if you look at. So if you go next, please. So Dhamani 1969, our mission is to bring timeless exotism to the world of fine jewelry, establishing Dhamani 1969, a world-leading brand synonymous with best quality gems, creative, elegant designs, aligned with outstanding personal service. So when we created the mission, we said the positioning and brand is as good as we apply on a daily basis. So the end result for consumer to take is timeless exotism, and how we achieve it through our strength and our vision of the brand, which is fine quality gems and elegant design and very personalized service. And the vision culminates to become ultimate house of jewels, enriching our customers' life by igniting their celebrations of accomplishments, events, and individual emotions, which we tagline is create moments to celebrate. So anything we do, we try to have moments to celebrate. If it's a customer's wedding or engagement or a graduation or so on and so forth, the team overall, from every touch point, they are gotten from a very early stage that how we can get more empathetic towards customer choices rather than just being a sales for a jewelry product, how we can involve ourselves to be the part of their customer journey and create moments to celebrate. If we go next. And then we have created a full deck. And again, I don't want to take further on this, but essence is to create timeless exotism. And when you see the foundation is on the bottom, that is a minimum requirement for each and every person and the organization, which is knowledge, quality, and variety, and corporate governance excellence. And what are our pillars of the brand? That our brand is mesmerizing, it's very personal, it's modern, it's immersive, and it's unusual. The kind of experience which we would demonstrate through the brand is very transporting and sensory. When you wear a piece of jewelry by Dhamani 1969, you're really going into that era. If it's wearing a nice emerald, ruby, pink diamond, yellow diamond, you really want to take to there. So all the team members have been trained accordingly to really create the memory of that product and really start their knowledge curve from where we always say from mind to the finger. That's very much experience which we give. And the narrative of the brand and business, I think, which is encompassed in like the deep family passion with an eye for identifying the most faultless jewels in the rough, and the artistry to bring them to life. So it shows the brand strength from the mind to the market, or mind to the finger, we call it. Dhamani represents a new world of fine jewelry, captivating your imagination and enthralling your senses. The fascination transcends eras and it's forever experience. The brand is very, very classic in design. The products with Dhamani 1969 sell, we are very upfront about it. It's about taking from generation to generation. So you'll see in further slide what we mean by that. If you go forward, please. And again, I'll quickly run down. It's all very personalization. We have a personalized design team based in Italy and Paris who regularly visit to Dubai, meet the client, meet the salespeople to make sure that our brand delivery, brand promise, and brand position is aligned very close hand in hand. This really helps us to really deliver that promise in totality. And this also, like we mentioned, the differentiated brand experience through our retail, at the same time, ethically holding over the social principles, at the same time, the different attributes of brand narratives. So if you can take next, whatever I said reflects in the boutique. We won the best design boutique in the world in 2014. You can Google and find. We were very humbled. We appointed Callison from Seattle as our architectural consultant. We said we want the brand to demonstrate what exactly our positioning is. And they researched the market in the top 5 or 6 global brands and uniquely created what we stand for as our brand positioning. So when a customer comes to a store, he really gets that experience, not only the product, not only the service, but the store environment. And we are very humble and proud of this achievement. Next, please. And this is typically what we do, whatever we talk about in terms of creating moments to celebrate or personalized occasions. These are the typical fine products which we do. If you can just scroll further down, I'll just, next slide. Again, the products, what we do. Next slide. Again, this is the kind of products. Next slide, please. And this is our affordable luxury brand, which is called Do Soul. I'll quickly run through this in 2 minutes to just give an insight of this. This is a product brand which is from $500 to $5,000 majority of products. So really see the positioning is very different. Our team is different. Our environments are different. And as we go in further slides, we can quickly look. If you can move to the next slide, please. And this aspiration has to be a jewelry label from Heart of Dubai. We design collection, which is very much like Dubai City, bold, eclectic, individual, and very, very much individual. You can go to the next, please. And the idea of Do Soul, if you see the logo comes from sea, sand, and star. So all our collections are defined by the positioning which we are trying to create these brand icons with the sea of Dubai, the sun, the sand, and the stars. Please, next. And similar to the 1969, there's a different brand mission and vision, which is very, if you see the vision is very youthful and aspirational and very avant-garde in classic and premium jewelry, very inquisitive, very visionary, bold, and very social. So this brand is very social media friendly, where customers enjoy. They're in a store, they can take a picture and post their global, all the boutiques of the brand will display that picture and so on and so forth. Next, please. And these are some of the collections which we display. Again, the price points and the product we talk about, which is for all kind of young crowd, which can come by themselves. It's a college going girl or a young graduate or a newly employed person who can go by herself to the store and buy jewelry. This is how we're trying to make 2 different brand positioning with our products. And if you go next slide, you'll see the location, a very, very different orange, coral colors, live screens in the stores, very customer interactive, highly digital media friendly, very digital interactive store, which is very different than the Dhamani 1969. And then I think I will pause here to be able to give you 2 different aspects of brand positioning coming from the same house of brand, but how totally different we are looking at the business, product, team, connection, client, so on and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you, Amit. Thank you for sharing the 2 different positioning of your 2 brands. Next, can I have Tanya, Alissia? You want to share how you manage the brands under PT Central?
Yes, thank you, Edna. Thank you, Richard and Amit. Let me just try to share my screen first. Hold on a second. There we go. Okay. So yes, thank you. So so I strongly agree on the fact that positioning is the foundation. let's see here. I have these Chinese proverbs. It says, to open a shop is easy, but to keep it open is an art. Same goes to branding. You know, to create a brand is really easy, but then to keep it alive is an art. So let's say that positioning is the art to keep your brand alive. Today, I will emphasize more on my experience in a multi-brand jewelry company, which runs 3 jewelry brands. We have 3 brands, Frank & Co, Mondial, and The Palace, which cater different target audience. However, whether you are running a single brand company, you still need to find the perfect positioning for your brand to be able to stand out from the crowds. I would like to go back to the reason why we create the second brand and the third brand and so on. Why do we create the second brand? Why do we create the third brand? Why aren't we just being very satisfied with just one brand? I'm pretty sure later on, Amit and Angelina can also add on the reason why, because we are all running a multi-brand jewelry company. But for my experience, our experience at CMK, the reason why we create the second brand and the third brand, because we feel there is still room to grow. The market in Indonesia is still growing, but then the first brand growth is no longer satisfying. So once you create the second brand, you create the third brand, then it's time for you to set the positioning for each brand. There is where the positioning steps in. So why we need to set the positioning? Because we want to avoid these 4 risks. Okay, number 1 is market confusion. You don't want to create market confusions. Our first brand is Frank & Co, then comes Mondial, and then comes the Palace. When we created the Palace, we did not want the Palace to be just another jewelry store. We did not want the Palace to be just another Frank & Co. We need the Palace to have its own identity. Number 2, we don't want cannibalism. When you create confused market, then it will only lead to cannibalism. And the third one is the worst nightmare of all, inefficient inventory. And number 4 is more brands mean more promotional budget. So this is where positioning steps in. But then again, positioning is not just a perfect and beautiful brand narratives. It involves executions, a perfect executions in all areas. So I'm gonna take you to these 3 samples of our brand visuals, of our brand campaign. Here we are talking about love. Love is a very universal language. Diamond is the ultimate symbol of love. But how are you going to talk about love to 3 different target audience so they would respond to the message that you are trying to say? So on the left, you can see a very classic, timeless engagement ring. Most of them are using popular round brilliant cut diamonds. So when you're actually looking for a timeless design, a very classic design, and you are about to propose to a very classy and elegant woman, we want our target audience to know that they have to go to Frank & Co. In the middle, you see that love comes in different shapes. So when you're about to propose to a brave and bold woman and love to wear something different, you have to go to Mondial. And the last, if you are more price-oriented customer, and then you're looking for varieties, you can go to the Palace. So this is the message that we try to deliver over and over and over again. Like Richard said, it has to be a frequent repetition, so it becomes the truth. You know, Rome wasn't built in a day. We can't just go for just 1 month campaign and expect people would know that Frank & Co only deliver, a classy design. It takes years to build, so the message becomes the truth. And I also would share the look of our store. So this is like the store look and the ambience. We also set the frontliners attitude to become in line with the positioning. So in this picture, you can see how different it feels when you steps into Frank & Co, or you step into Mondial, and you step into the Palace. I also have here the comparison between 3 brands through their social media. So you can see, when you see Frank & Co, you can see like the classiness, the elegant, timeless. And when you see Mondial, it's brave, different. And then the Palace is pretty much having everything you're looking for. Everything is at the Palace, So people often ask me, like, how do you know your positioning works? So at CMK, we have the proof that, okay, the positioning works when the sales revenue for each brand contributing significantly to the company. And as I say, it's not just the positioning, but also the executions is very important. And then the frequent repetitions. Within 5 years, we have to make sure that the sales contribution will reach double-digit percentage. Otherwise, what you have to do is either you do the rebranding or probably terminate the brand. So that's all I can share in this part. So back at you, Richard.
Thank you, Tanya. That's very interesting. Next, I would like to invite Angelina to talk about your brands at SK Jewellery.
Hi everyone. Just checking if you can see my slides.
Yes, we can see very well.
Okay, all right. Thanks Edna for coordinating this, and thanks Amit and Richard as well as Tanya for sharing. Okay, hi everyone. I'm Angelina from SK Jewellery Group from Singapore. So as you all know, Singapore is a very small city-state. So for us at SK Jewellery Group, it is vital to diversify, so that we can penetrate through the market and we can have multiple brands to serve a lot more customers. So in our group, we actually have 3 concepts, 3 main concepts. The first being SK Jewellery, second SK Gold, and the third being Love & Co. So at the group level, we believe that through our various brands and concepts, and within each brand, we have its own unique product offerings, we can add sparkle to every customer's lives. So just a quick introduction of our individual brands. Okay, so first we have SK Jewellery. So SK Jewellery is the leading brand in Singapore. Our goal is to put every jewelry box into every household in Singapore. So at SK Jewellery, we offer a very wide range of products from yellow gold to diamond jewelry, and basically everyone is our customer, from a retiree to a young baby through different stages of life. And the next brand is SK Gold. So SK Gold takes pride for being the gold leader, the champion in Singapore. So basically here we have a more refreshed outlook and a more refreshed positioning to target Gen X and the millennial customers. And these could be early converts of yellow gold. So gold jewelry need not be boring. It can be meaningful, it can be modern, it can be contemporary. The third brand that we have is engagement ring and wedding band specialist. So this brand is a lot more niche. It offers a lot more heartfelt services, professional personalized experience for customers who are going to get married or celebrating their various anniversaries. So overall, despite every brand having its own personality and uniqueness, in the management office, we constantly revisit the different dimensions of our corporate brand identity. So we believe that having like that's mentioned by Tanya, it's really hard to maintain a business. It's almost having multiple personalities at any one time. So I think sometimes the most complicated question can be answered by the simple fundamentals. So often we come back to revisit these three dimensions, one being the brand ecosystem. So the question is, what is the purpose? What is the value system? What is the culture of each and every of our brands? Why is there a space for us in the marketplace when our customers are changing, but what we are selling is not changing? Number two, how do we also add value to our customers within each brand? And ultimately, when we have three brands, how do we balance them all together at the group level? Okay. Second question we always revisit is our core competency. At the end of the day, as a retailer, it's back to these three items. How are our products faring, how are our services faring, and how are our experience. So, and then the third one ultimately is our stakeholders, which is the most important of all, our employees and our customers. So in SK Group, we strongly believe in happy employees, happy customers. So if our employees are not united with the company in our vision, our mission, and our value system, it will be very hard to convince our customers. So internally, we always believe that the first group of people that we need to convince is our own employees. Hence, we always strive to be very authentic in the way we do the things, and we often preach to them in a way the company is moving. So to sum up, actually being clear of our purpose, or every individual brand's purpose, is not enough. We have to stay relevant, and we need to build loyalty. And we also need to demonstrate our commitment to balance and perfect through all these three simple dimensions so that we can build long-term growth as well as sustainability. Finally, this also determines, when we talk about different brands, it's as good as having three different babies. So when we have every baby individually, we have to envision a life for them. How are we catering to the customers today? How are we catering to the customers tomorrow? And I believe this is very important. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents worth.
Thank you, Angelina. Okay, so we have heard from all three speakers about how they manage their multi-brands under one roof, and we see how they take positioning very seriously, and positioning seems to be the one common thing that threads through them. So now let's turn back to Richard to continue your presentation.
I'll just finish my donut. I think it's interesting, some key takeouts just to reflect upon there is, in reverse, is that the positioning is not just consumer facing and for the consumer's benefit, it's an internal lever as well. And I think as we sort of see there, the need to reflect that positioning internally and across all staff, have an understanding of what that is, and also then as we go back and seeing not just how it's reflected in the communications, but I also did quite like seeing the way that it was reflected even in the store design. And that's what we talk about, I guess, which is, you know, idea, execution, even media. They are all important factors and facets, but they all stem from that positioning, is why it's really worth spending time to get it right and to think about it. Obviously, we're all sort of very professional people, but you would be surprised how many big brands actually don't go through that, and it's not even clear internally, and how many meetings I've been to, and they always, when we're presenting creative work and things, the first couple of rounds are always about what are we trying to say, as opposed to how are we going to say it. If you've got your what, the how is very easy, and I think we've sort of seen some examples of that there. Now I'm just trying to work, there we go. Okay, so like I was saying, idea, execution, media, they all sort of stem We get those right, we get the positioning right, all else sort of flows out of that. Just a little example here about sticking to your guns and finding something that works. Guinness spent millions of dollars over 15 years. They repositioned the brand 15 times. It's almost like every season they went to market, they decided to reposition the brand. Beer is very competitive, all those sorts of things. So they threw 20 things at the wall in 15 years. In a recent survey, consumers only remembered one of them that stuck with them. And that was from 1999. Apart from being a very good product, what's good about this line, again, is it's got a product truth, a relatable consumer insight, and a desirable benefit. It's not telling you what it is, it's telling you what it means. And it can be very tempting to reposition often, but it's also important not to confuse positioning with your product proposition and the campaign idea. There are many product campaigns that can and should come off a strong brand positioning. If you think about Nike and Apple, it's lasted for years, but it's always different, it's always fresh, but it's still reflecting those same values. So how do we separate brand and product, or product and brand, when so often it's similar? Again, I just sound like a broken record, but if maybe you think about product is what something is and brand is what something means, and that generally holds true even when product is the brand and brand is the product, and getting into those values. Another way you can sort of look at it, being environmentally conscious as we are, position is kind of the climate. It's the condition that prevails, generally speaking, over a long period of time, like the climate, with regard to the environment that we're in, public opinion or other aspects of life. If you think of it in some other terms, it's like the macro environment that impacts the micro. But your proposition for your product is what's happening at a particular time and place, and that can be very flexible and very fluid. And that's sort of the micro going into industry and market levels, the promotional, the product, the seasonal, the tactical. But all this is driven by the positioning. So if we go back to our plane, remember the plane? Think of it that way, is that your positioning and your proposition are those areas that decide whether you come back and get to fly another day. Your idea, your execution, and your media are the things that you can tinker with and can take a bit of a beating, and can refresh and you keep going back to the market with. Proposition is more mission critical than idea and execution. Positioning is more mission critical than execution and media. The reason I say that, because if your message is right, who cares where people see it, right? There's so many places we can target people with for the message. So it doesn't matter what screen they see it on. But if the message is wrong, what difference does it make, right? If you don't get that message right, it doesn't matter where you put it. And that sort of things. That's sort of how to balance this idea. You'll go to a lot of places and people are always talking about the media, and yes, it's important, but it all stems from something else, and making sure you're doing the right media for your positioning and who you want to talk to. Because if that message is wrong, it doesn't matter what you say or where you say it. It's not going to connect with people. So media is important, but the most important media space is the space between your ears. That's what gives you access to people's hearts and their minds. That's the media space. And within that, message and idea get attention in the wild, saturated sea of consumerism. It's the message and the idea that gets your attention. And then it's the execution and craft that holds attention. And then it's the emotion that binds and bonds somebody, binds your brand to the audience. So you'll hear a lot about emotion, and it's very, very important. I want something emotional. And everyone nods their head, and everyone walks away with a completely different idea of what that means. So when we think about emotion, it's not enough just to say emotion. you have to think which emotion, what button do you want to push, right? Do we want to leverage sad, happy, hurt, energized, tired, relieved? These are all emotions. And when people say, oh, you know, afraid, stressed, annoyed, critical, bored, understood, accepted, loved, do we want to leverage those? They can also all be very powerful emotions in the right situation, as can depressed, disgusted, jealous, betrayed, amused, relaxed, inspired, vibrant, all relevant emotions. And deciding which one to pull, which lever to pull, is about being what will be most effective in your situation. And by effective, it just means it has to be believable, because sincerity or integrity of the emotion is often more important than the emotion itself. It has to be perceived as being true, even if it's not, if you know what I mean. It needs to be married to an insight. It needs to connect it to consumers. It's not just enough to be schmaltzy and romantic if it's not believable. So you have to learn to fake that emotion, and you've got it made without being too cynical. But believability is more important than honesty. You know, honesty is like poetry. Everyone hates poetry. We can use any relevant emotion, but it is the integrity of the insight and the attractiveness of your proposition and that distinct, meaningful positioning that will get you the connection with people. You can't look at them as mutually exclusive. They're all intertwined and that sort of things. But again, they all stem from that little kernel we have at the beginning. So with that, I'll just take another little break and see how other people are feeling a little bit emotional.
Thank you, Richard. So this is interesting. I think we heard a lot about positioning, but actually jewelry is one thing. Actually, we need to bring out the emotions, because that's how customers connect with a piece of jewelry. But a lot of times from the trade perspective, we are too focused on the product itself, like how big is the diamond and what color is the stone or what materials is being set by. And a lot of times, or sometimes, we just overlook the emotional bond that we need to create with the customers. But I want to first invite Angelina, because I know you have something to say about building emotions with your customers. So you want to say something first?
Yes, sorry, just let me launch my slides. Okay, can you see my slides?
Yes.
Okay, yes, thanks. Okay, so I think the golden question about emotional connection, I think again, back to basics. Okay, retail is a business of demand and supply. So as a retailer, we have to constantly think about what the customer wants and how can we provide better for them, for the customer today and for the customer tomorrow. So emotional connection is a primary need, which is extremely important for the jewelry business, because ultimately whatever that we are selling is not a necessity in life. Yeah. So whether a customer buys from us or feel good or to celebrate a special occasion or to show success or wealth, it is important for our brands to identify them and build strategy around these motivators. But nevertheless, I think tonight I would like to highlight some probably some pressing needs that we need to consider. Okay, apart from the basic brand building exercise as well as the emotions, and that is because the pandemic has changed the ball game for everyone. Yeah, so we have to build our emotional connections while recognizing all these changes around us, so that every brand can remain relevant as well as exciting to the consumers today. So the first point I would like to raise is that consumers today expect hyper personalization. So retail is no longer a transaction, but an experience which customers expect to be understood both online and offline. So on top of data gathering as well as analysis, I think the question is how can we do better and how can we apply these learnings and add personalization on both online and offline experiences. This is a task that me and my team, we are thinking every day. Do we know our customers before they enter our stores? Do we know what to serve them better? And do we know what are they really looking for? Yeah. And point number 2, it's about with increase in digital consumption, and this is accelerated because of COVID-19. Now customers need this digital experience, and this is in high demand. So consumers expect brands to be highly engaging. Otherwise, I will not leave my house to purchase something. Yeah. So in the past year, we continue to invest in both e-commerce as well as retail touchpoints. And I think the store environment as well as our service standards. So in the social commerce space, we also continue to make sure that we are engaging. We are even in the retail entertainment space. We collaborate with third parties, so on and so forth. And then we can drive traffic to our retail stores. And the question is, how can we increase this brand experience in our retail stores? Okay. And for the third point, is that consumers now prioritize health, safety, as well as wellness, and they want to know where their purchases come from, as well as the impact that the business has on the environment and communities. Hence, we need to be more transparent. And I think this is hard for the jewelry business because we have so many things to tell in one diamond. But this is what the customers want. So we have to consider transparency, sustainability in our business practices. So at our group, it's even from the use of more sustainable forms of packaging to even adopting renewable solar energy to our offices to funnel our different energy requirements, to even consider products that are more sustainable, for example, recycled materials, or even say the alternative like lab-grown diamonds. So all these are areas that we will have to think as well as diversify so that we can continue to stay ahead of the game and offer the needs for our customers tomorrow. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Angelina. Now I want to see if Amit, do you have anything you want to share about bringing out the emotional bond with your customers in any of your marketing campaigns?
Thank you. I think it's very nice to hear from everybody and understand the different perspectives. Like I mentioned, our brand tagline is create moments to celebrate. So the emotion is the first and foremost angle where all of our business foundations are on. We are very clear that the customers, whoever is coming to buy, there is an emotion behind the purchase. So this is where we start with the emotional intelligence, guiding our team members to really get in conversation from before. What is the purchase for? And then actually trying to take the journey of the customer. If it's a bridal purchase, so then it requires the timeline, the kind of dresses and attire they are wearing. If there's a bigger wedding, how many numbers of days is wedding, a budget according to the event and occasion. If there's an engagement, certainly it's a totally different market. Whenever it's happening for a graduation, it's a very, very different emotion, which very much do soul our younger brand. They capture the girl or a young customer want that emotion in terms of demonstrating through a piece of jewelry and a price point and coming from a good brand. This is where we feel that emotion plays an important role. Today, the more and more if we look at, emotion is the first and foremost driving force for any of the jewelry sales. I think budgets, all that thing come later. I think that all can be managed first if we are very clear with the emotional angle of customers who's making the purchase and the occasion. This is where we try to focus our biggest time.
Thank you, Amit. How about Tanya? You have anything to add?
Thank you, Edna. I think I agree with Amit as well. We believe that there is always a celebrations behind our customer purchase. Every piece of diamond jewelry has its own story. So our homework as the brand is how we are going to communicate that emotion, that function of jewelry, and giving the customer solutions they need. But again, the most important thing is the solutions need to be relevant to each customers. That's all I can share.
That's very true. Relevance is a key word here. We should always remember, keep in mind. Otherwise, it won't be believable. So it has to be relevant, and then it's believable for the customers. Okay, so why don't we turn back to Richard? Richard?
Unmute. Sorry, just unmuting. There we go. I finished my drink. But it's very interesting when we talk about positioning, but also the emotional context, and then to bring up what we've all sort of been living through for the last couple of years. And some are further on the way out of that than others. And there are many sorts of things that can lead to repositioning is probably the third type, and finding something to believe in these times that are very challenging. But you know, there's obviously a lot of emphasis on current events, but there's a lot of reasons we can have for repositioning. It can be as much to do with our brand's relevance as it can do with the situation in the market. I guess the thing to remember is, you know, are we repositioning actually just for the sake of the proposition as opposed to what the brand represents? And that interrogation, you know, you can zig, you can zag, but is it really a tactical message rather than a long-term sort of positioning? And another way to look at that, we can go to another old chestnut. For the maize that is repositioning, you may have heard of this brand, synonymous with the color and very distinctive brand cues. This was something they did a while ago. So obviously they believe in turquoise, and they believe in associations with Audrey Hepburn, Breakfast at Tiffany's, Moon River, and position themselves behind belief and that. And I guess they wrapped it up, so to speak, no pun intended, with a reimagined appeal to young people. Is it believable? Is it sincere? Does it feel a little forced, like that auntie who's trying to be down with the kids? But more importantly, did it work? Well, if it didn't, they doubled down on it. So now we're about love. And in case we didn't get it, they blatantly, boldly come out and say, not your mother's Tiffany, in case you missed it. Maybe that could alienate some existing users, but it's clearly a sign of intent to tell and then show. Beyonce and Jay-Z, you know, it's a bit different, or is it? Because again, the visual cues, Breakfast at Tiffany's, Audrey Hepburn, just reimagined, repositioned, letting the visuals, I guess, say that we've sort of a little bit different, but holding on to, I guess, what they consider to be core brand assets and values are part of that positioning. You know, about love, again, is that a positioning that you can own? It's interesting in this sort of space, you know, or if you do go for love, what's your take on love that makes you feel a bit differently? And again, coupled with that, not your mother's Tiffany. Another brand you may be familiar with, Love Is All. It's interesting, you know, owning a unique positioning. What is interesting about this brand is, again, they have their visual cues, and they go for the refresh and renew as well, but they don't really position themselves per se, opting really for the strength of the brand and branding. So they augment seasonal messages, and they rely on the strength of their iconography. The red box, the Panther, celebrity ambassadors, you know, we don't even have to say who that is, we know, but they just sort of refresh the proposition every now and then, but actually their positioning has pretty much stayed the same forever. So what this sort of can be viewed as is what we call myth and renewal, which is very popular with luxury brands. That a brand with a really strong pedigree and heritage can do this, and they are firmly positioned in the minds of consumers. Of course, not many luxury brands, well, not many brands have that luxury, which is why repositioning is a slightly different exercise to positioning, because of all the stuff that has come before and what position you may occupy in people's minds. It does take time to build that positioning, where brand is product and product is brand, and time is something we don't really have a lot of. So in summary, I will just summarize what we've learned today about positioning, which is that really a picture is worth 1,000 words, but never underestimate the power of a great line. A clear, relevant positioning and proposition can get you elected to the highest office in the land. One picture, one word, but a great positioning. And that seemed to work for him, because positioning creates that foundation for the idea, the execution, the emotion, and the media of a successful campaign. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Richard. That's very thought-provoking. You had us all thinking, have a lot of ideas and thoughts and things going through our head right now, thinking about what is best for the jewelry industry, for the different brands. And then the key word here is what your brand really means, and the product is actually what it is, and the brand is what something means. I think this is a new way of looking at things, and you certainly put some structure into how we should look at marketing and branding, and developing an emotional bond to make it relevant and believable for the customers. I think these are all very key things that we can take back after this discussion. And with that, I just want to address some of the questions that we have been receiving. Okay, oh, I think, okay, a couple of questions were answered, but Okay, the first question we have is, how does social media marketing help build a B2B brand? I know this is not up your alley because you're not so much a media person, but maybe you can share your thoughts on it, Richard.
Sure. I love this question because it does come up a lot these things aren't interdependent. So B2B is social media, particularly in places like China, and I think is 80 to 90% of B2B marketing is done on social media. But it's just another media. So again, I refer to, in answering that question, it's more that, yeah, it has a role to play, but it has to be used effectively. But what people are doing more and more is realizing that, whereas before people thought, I don't have to do marketing because I'm B2B, it's all personal relationships. Actually, think about personal relationships. They are the most emotional of all, and you have fewer customers when you are in B2B. So the need to make that connection and maintain that relationship becomes more important. And social media can be a very good tool for that, particularly for maintaining relationships. Content marketing is becoming quite important for B2B to differentiate and distinguishing. But like all media, it's got to be used properly and not just for the sake of using it. You've got to get your messaging right and how often you communicate and what you communicate through those channels. But are we talking about social media as in WeChat, or are we talking about social media in Instagram? It's a very broad, and each one, social media using Twitter, it has to be used very differently. LinkedIn. They all can be used, but you need to use them effectively in that regard. But it is becoming more popular, obviously, to use that channel, and particularly in these times when we don't have physical relationships anymore, that developing relationships through that. The other thing I will say just quickly is that social media is very good at maintaining relationships, and digital is very good for maintaining relationships. It might need a little bit of help when it comes to new relationships and growing beyond. One of the questions I get a lot from, particularly in the fashion industry, where you're talking about B2B type businesses, they seem to want more and more to, like, well, we have our customers and we talk to them a lot. How do we get new customers? And that's where you have to go outside digital sometimes, or you have to go into direct, because you kind of know who you want to talk to or the space you want to get into. And you have to go beyond social media, because social media is like a closed loop. It's very good at getting you to talk to people that kind of already know you. It's not very good at getting you to people who don't know you. So that's worth thinking about. Is you'll see a lot of digital brands are actually advertising in mass media these days because they need growth. And a lot of times growth actually comes from mass. So B2B definitely has a place with social media, and it's a very valuable tool. And it's becoming more and more important, particularly with things like content marketing and direct marketing through those social channels at building and maintaining relationships.
Thank you. Angelina, you have something to say about that on social media?
Yeah, I think the question is, first we need to know our audience. So for example, in the context of, say, Singapore and Malaysia, social media is kind of a way of life already. So at the end of the day, after crafting the message, what area is it, or rather which media does it make sense to have our marketing message going out most effectively? So I guess the good point is that we can actually, there are a lot of tools around, and we can target audience more directly. And more importantly, ultimately, is really to let our customers know that we are there. Yeah, and I personally feel that social media is something that is kind of a way of life. We cannot escape it anymore. Yeah, and in fact, the developments is also changing very fast. I think for a marketer, this is a complicated question, even knowing the media, how you want to handle on TikTok, how you want to handle on Instagram, WeChat, Twitter, is all very different. We need to have different people, different specialists on different channels.
Yeah, that's certainly true. Tanya or Amit, you want to add to that?
I think, Edna, I'll be I'll be making an interesting confession. You know, me coming from a background where print media was everything, and I felt and thought that's a way to do. And during COVID time, the new generation, they joined our team, they started marketing, and slowly and gradually digital, which was hardly any percentage of our business. Actually, today, I must say it's predominantly we are all on digital. Like Richard rightly said, and Angela said, there are different digital platforms to manage different messages, but we are super active on digital across the board. And while we do that, we have really, really reduced the print spend dramatically. But the impact is much more than if we look back 2 or 3 years ago, the kind of spend versus impact. I think digital has a greater impact. Thanks.
Thank you. Tanya, you have anything to add?
I think because people now, they're always on their phone. So I think maintaining your presence on social media is very important. But again, the question was how important it is to keep social media when you're doing B2B business. So I think it really go back to the message that you're trying to say. It's going to be very different between you're talking to B2B and then B2C. So the messages is the most important thing, but the presence, you really need to keep it open at all times.
Yeah, thank you. Next question we have is your brand stronger or more resilient now, 2 years into the pandemic? The second part to this question is, how did you keep your brand relevant in these challenging times? So I'm going to direct these to the brand managers, so the business owners. Angelina, you want to talk about that first?
Okay, so I think the pandemic forces us to, retail, over here, we like to use the term is also to reimagine. So the first thing is to reimagine where the money is, what our customers want now, and how do they behave. So I guess for us, we are quite blessed because I think the Singapore government has also done a relatively good job in maintaining the economy and the livelihood of people. So, and given that we are a well-known local brand, we have emerged stronger, more resilient. Okay, but that said, we are also very thankful for our staff being very flexible and very nimble. So we doubled down on our efforts, whether it's online and offline. We continue to push forward. When people are staying at home, we doubled down on socials and e-commerce efforts, upgrading every single of our websites, our third-party platforms, so on and so forth. We look at various indicators online, live streaming, non-stop. When the doors open for retail business to be continued, that's when we extend the service to them. But we do not stop at all for our online business. The good thing is the pandemic pushed us to really be committed in online. So now, I think on a day-to-day basis, we are still struggling. We are still trying our best to perfect the whole O2O game. We are still looking at indices. It's a big word, but we have, at least I would say right now, we have a lot more clarity in where we are driving.
Thank you, Angelina. Tanya, you want to say something about your brand being stronger or more resilient 2 years into the pandemic? And how do you keep your brand relevant in these challenging times?
Yeah, we were so glad that we decided not to stop trying during the full lockdown. We never stopped trying to reach out to the customers during the full lockdown when they cannot visit our stores. So we try to reach them out through digital, and also we send care packages to their home. Just try to, keep communicating with them, just to tell them that we are still there. So when the lockdown, when the stores start to open, that's when we kind of harvest the result from what we did during the full lockdown. So the secret is never stop trying, no matter what the situation is.
Good advice. Amit, you have anything to add to that?
think certainly I echo what everyone has said, but certainly if you really look at the impact directly to customers or consumers, I think we have gained in that due to pandemic, because earlier there were much more different kind of efforts, which is physical events, print media, variety of tie-ups, which has really been transformed because customers are on phone all the time due to pandemic, and they are more savvy. Even they have transformed their habits, so that's why we are benefiting from that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Actually, I'm conscious about time, so unfortunately, we do need to wrap up because it is getting late. And before we go, I would like to invite Ms. Letitia Chow, founder and chairperson of JWA, to give a closing remark. Letitia, please.
Good day, friends from all over the world. My heartfelt thanks to you for joining us today. Your participation and contribution make this webinar a fruitful and meaningful gathering. We want you to leave this webinar with some thoughts and aspirations on how to take your business forward with greater results. You are cordially invited to the JWA Awards presentation ceremony, which will be held in Dubai on 21st of February, which is on the eve of the JGT Dubai International B2B Jewelry Show from 22nd to 24th of February. We hope to see you there. Thank you.
Thank you, Letitia. Now, we have to give a big thank to our speakers tonight, Richard, Angelina, Tanya, and Amit. Thank you so much for joining and being on our speaking panel. The four of you have given us a lot of food for thought, for sure. And I'm sure our participants and audience enjoy it as much as we did. So thank you very much. And I would also like to thank our webinar sponsor, P&J, for making this event possible. So we hope you have all enjoyed the discussion. And thank you, and see you next time. Thank you. And we have a message from P&J.